Strike me down. Do it. Do it, Rashan. Strike me down. I've been a naughty, naughty emperor. I've been a bad little emperor. Rashan, how about you? How about you, Gregory? Will you strike me down?
Oh, fuck yeah. Yeah.
I was told you would not kink shame. The Jedi, they are always kinky.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sure. We're friends.
I've been a bad little emperor.
That's okay. Hey, I will spank my friends.
There we go. Well, that's all. I mean, that's a sign of a mark of a true friend right there.
There it is. I'll spank.
There are two ways about it.
If you did, yeah. I mean, if it's really something that you want and you just can't find anybody on Facebook, all right, fine.
I'm trying to push. I'm trying to expand the sort of the whole idea of the show here, and I do want the submissive emperor to be a reoccurring character. I'm just saying. If you take a look really at Emperor Palpatine, what's he doing every time he shows up?
Strike me down. Take the lightsaber. Take it to me. Good. Do it.
I mean, is it just me, or is there something entirely else going? Is there something happening here that we're just not ready to talk about, or George isn't, trying to communicate to us, or what's happening? I don't know.
Oh, I've pointed that out in the last trilogy that shouldn't have happened. I was saying how some of those scenes, like the lightsaber battles against the red guys, I was like, wow, this looks like something you would see at a really badass BDSM club.
There you go.
Yeah,
okay.
You know what I mean? Like this is like a really badass Eyes Wide Shut party.
There you go. I'm sure. Well, I am fresh back from a 48-hour nerdgasm. It was certainly no Eyes Wide Shut party. I was running around with my kids, and
it was not an Eyes Wide Shut.
It was not an Eyes Wide Shut, but I was really okay with it. That's all right. I know my lane. I stay in my lane. I don't kink shame, but I also know myself too. To thy known self be true. But God, what a absolutely fantastic time we had, just running around for 48 hours straight playing Star Wars. Both my kids had a great time. My youngest dressed up like a captain, just totally owned it. Had his hands clasped behind his back, walking around like he owned the fucking place. It was great. My oldest just had grown men and women weeping with
my God, that was beautiful.
With his impromptu speech. It had the music behind it, everything, and something I didn't put up there, but they got to play with the Force and drag a rock to him. Which, all right, I'm gonna be that guy. I'm gonna be the white guy for a minute here. So forgive me. I gotta own that space, but I'm owning it ahead of time. But for the money that I had to shovel out for that shit, yeah, you better make my kids Jedi. That's all there is to that. Like, I fully fucking expected. You better make my kids use the Force, because that's just expected. That's cool. That's my dear, we've already established what you are. Now we're just haggling over the price, to quote Winston Churchill. But it is I, Josh the Birdman, back from vacation, as tanned as I ever get, which is to say, mildly ruddy around there. Happy to be back in the steam tunnels and talking pop culture and social commentary. I am determined to stick the landing this week. I am joined by my amazing and wonderful co-hosts. We're going to start with the Three Oak Clubs. Rashan Smith, how are you doing today?
I'm dealing with the expectation and the pressure of you saying I'm going to stick the landing, because I'm telling you right now, it's a little wobbly up here. and my sense of balance and direction have already been thrown off, man. So I'm just going to try not to land on my head and neck.
That was after our last time getting together, and I, managed to totally forget the intro. So, right, which was that man pulling the ripcord underneath the bridge. That was what that was. So,
I still don't get that, but yeah.
I just need someone to explain to me why there. Why, when you're approaching underneath a bridge, that's when you decide to pull the ripcord. Everything else I can understand, but I need someone from that movie production to say, hey, you know what? This is when he's going to do it. Like, if you're trying to show this guy is not completely brilliant, fine, but you kind of landed when he didn't even know basic Spanish. So I don't need to see the guy damn near kill himself.
He was not
In
yet
that
the
way.
world's greatest detective. He was.
No, he wasn't. That was one point that Greg has been feasting on for like the last week and a half. Feasting. My man's
He's really not.
My man's had Thanksgiving dinner left and right on that one little tidbit.
Whatever, vengeance. Okay.
Okay.
Leading into that, leads me over beautifully. It continues my little flight here, my little Star Wars flight down the Death Star trench to my other wonderful co-host here. That is the Star Child himself, Gregory DeSense. What the hell's going on with you today, my man?
I'm feeling all right, ready to kill the radio star.
Yeah. There he goes. Look at that, man. This is what happens after a while. You get some simpatico, one hand washes the other, but that is, actually, thanks to Greg, that's what we have assembled here to talk about this week, right? Greg I want my MTV. That amazing bit of our youth that was music television. We saw the ads that told us to tell our parents to call and say, I want my MTV. I didn't even understand like what the hell it meant when I was seeing it or what the hell you had to do, because at that point I didn't have cable. Cable was still an amazing, thing that only the very few possessed. Magic, without a doubt, right? That cable television. But here was this interesting, and I think it is an important stop to take, this interesting and amazing little stop upon the pop culture cavalcade that really came out of the 70s into the 80s and had this influence that I think we can officially say has waned now. I really don't know if I don't know. I mean, I guess there's still the
dead as Dillinger now.
Yeah, it's still like occasionally I hear about the music awards from time to time.
It's not dead. It's just not for us.
Yeah. Could we say, is it on life support, or is it just not for us? Is it just
it's just not for us. It's doing, you can argue that it's doing better now than it's ever done.
We are the guys showing up at the club. Like, I'm still cool. I can get in.
I'm just going off of the money that they're making and the amount that they have to put into. Yes, they didn't have to do a whole lot when all they were doing is literally the third party of someone else's work being displayed in a music video. However, what they've programmed into, they no longer have to count on any artist whatsoever. They produce their own content and people show up for it, or they download it, or they stream it. MTV is sadly doing better without our generation.
I'm going to
process that.
I'm going to do my best impression of somebody who hates disagreeing with Rashawn. No, that's not what it is. Got like
that is not that. I mean, that is not what
don't
we
hurt
do
yourself.
Here. That is not what we do here.
For being what they should be. I mean, they are dominated by everybody from just all of the distraction that kids have today. Like, you go up to your average 13-year-old and tell them to put MTV somewhere on their list of entertainment choices, their top 10, I doubt it will make the list.
I disagree.
Well, we're off to a lively start here. So with that, I'm gonna go right to it because damn it, we're gonna stick this landing. I'll make everybody stick. I'm gonna drag everyone along with me in my little flying squirrel suit here. That's just what's gonna happen today. If that's what's gotta happen. But with that, I think that's a great way to lead it into our little conversation here about MTV and the effect it has on pop culture and social commentary. Greg, I want you, as the star child, you got your 10 minutes of fame here. So let's find out what you got on your mind here today.
Well, I'm a little bit lucky because MTV was never my number one go-to. You know what I mean? Like, it was either BET, because BET had a 2-hour hip hop show called The Basement. And it actually took a couple of different shapes too. And they would have like R&B and reggae and even like a couple of like old Motown themed shows. So for me, it was probably more BET, and then Are You Ready? Are you ready? The Jukebox. Yeah, I said it. The Jukebox. Hey, grown-ups, ask your parents. But it was for me, like MTV was always kind of a other. Like I didn't hate it, but it was always kind of a other. We all know the story. Video killed the radio star, and I'm going to say that it really peaked in the 80s. I don't think it ever really got more relevant than it did in that period in the 80s. They lagged on Black artists, and they were criticized about that. But then when they finally
Absolutely.
brought in Lionel Richie and Michael Jackson, oh, it just exploded. It exploded. Madonna and Michael Jackson were the kings and queens of MTV, and MTV was a showcase for everything that was relevant and counterculture. Now I'm going to keep harping on that word counterculture, because it really was the repackaging of the biggest thing since the 60s. Like, this was the most relevant and aggressive show of youth culture since the 60s. Like, this was just a display that was doing what it should do, scaring the Jesus out of grown-ups and cultivating a world outside of the grown-ups for kids and teenagers. Like, MTV was most kids' one stop for everything that was going on in the world. And I loved it too. I ain't gonna lie. I watched it too. Once Casey Kasem went off the air, I think he went off the air. I don't know, but everybody stopped watching just the top 10 and you went to MTV. It was mostly music, like it really did have the Club MTV show, and it did have Yo MTV Raps and so on. And no one minded that it was just going to lean into things that are just relevant, like things that the alt crowd, things that the kids that were really counterculture really were interested in, which was my favorite thing of MTV of all time, liquid television. Weird ass animation made by weird ass people. It was just fucking bizarre. And then they had the Max. I don't remember if the Max was part of liquid television, but that was just
I think it
more
started as part of liquid television. And
yeah, I think so. And it was just more strange ass animation. And I was like, between this and the music videos, like I felt like I could really stick it out. And my first taste of really hardcore left-wing news. That's right, Kurt Loder. I didn't forget you. I remember you, man. I remember Kurt Loder. And you know what? That was my first. Oh, and Tabitha Soren. I remember her hard hitting journalism. And yeah, they really made a voice for youth centric counterculture news. That time that she went out with that gang and put Walmart on blast for not selling CDs that were explicit, but selling guns to literally anybody that would walk up after Columbine was amazing. I'm going to say news wise, that was MTV's moment. Like it was a beautiful thing. But like most things in our youth, it was a lie, and our passions were being manipulated by the money men, pretending they cared about our preferences, and giving us a hit, that junky hit of feeling you were in control and cultivating a world away from your grown-ups, when the truth is they were trying to get their hands on all of that expensive, expendable time and money that the youth have. That's right, young people. There's, at least from a media standpoint, there's really nothing special about being young. You just have extra money and extra time to kill. So, they make you feel like you're special. I'm sorry. And eventually, it's life. You eventually become the thing that you always hated. And so MTV did start to fall off. So when did it start to fall off? That's the big question. There are different opinions, because for the longest time, even when they were showing mostly music videos, everybody was saying, oh, where are the music videos? They don't show it. It's like, dude, they have like one news segment and I don't know, 2 reality shows at the time. The rest of it was still music, but people were just always making that complaint. I don't think they ever got away from it until they really did start showing mostly reality TV shows and, what felt like a nonstop gag reel. So then who remembers MTV2?
I do.
Yeah, remember?
Oh, yeah.
They put
Both of us got
MTV2.
that.
Preach.
MTV2 was supposed to be like nonstop music videos, and MTV was going to do whatever they wanted. And that's when they really started leaning into the reality television, and it started going to hell. For me, it was when it stopped being counterculture and started being hip. Now, I know what you're thinking. Madonna was hip, but she was counterculture. Like being the trendy, pretty kids, being the fashionable kids. Let's go back to high school. Let's be honest, they were another crowd. The counterculture kids, the anti kids, like they were a completely different crowd. And so MTV, especially by embracing Madonna and androgynous Prince and Boy George and Cyndi Lauper. Again, I'm going back to that period in the 80s, but then you're talking about bringing in Yo MTV Raps. Like these weren't the cool kids in the lunchroom. You know what I mean? Like, especially at that time, like this was the counterculture. It stopped being counterculture, late 90s, which late 90s, 2000s, I'm going to say, throw in 9/11. It was just the worst time in human history. It was just awful. It was just a terrible, terrible time.
He's saying that as a veteran of 2020, people. So just listen up.
It could be
that's a lot of weight to put on the hackers.
It could be a toss-up. It could be a toss-up. But the boy band started coming in, all the shiny suits with
coming back.
I mean,
coming back.
All of that. It was just absolutely atrocious. Like it was just, again, they handed MTV off to the cool kids, not just the cool kids, the obnoxious cool kids, like the in your face kids that go to Cancun and wherever the fuck in Florida, you know what I mean? Like those greasy haired, shirt open, baggy jeans. Someone please compliment me and mistake me for black. Popular kids, like those kids that no one in their right mind liked. So then I started to feel like, all right, was I being the bad guy here?
Why you hating, Greg? Why you hating?
Because fuck those kids. But I was like, am I being the bad? Because I don't want
Michael Jordan.
I don't want to be like those people that just turned on disco because things turned shiny and happy, like it's great. And like I said, MTV was never my main thing anyway. But when I saw the decline, because I guess things got too dark after Kurt Cobain killed himself, I left too. Let's just say that. I have no problem with it. And so now MTV, they dropped the music television. They haven't been music television since I think 2010. They've just been MTV, and they'll basically play anything that gets them ratings and keeps them afloat. And today, like I said, like kids these days, no, they ask Alexa. They don't go to MTV. Between TikTok and YouTube. Actually, I mean, your mind's going to go straight to social media, but YouTube crushed them. You go to any Michael Jackson video, any video that they used to play in the 80s right up until now, there are more views of that one video than MTV has followers on YouTube. That's saying a lot, because if MTV was anything what it's supposed to be, it would have tens of millions of followers. It would at least have more than, say, your average Doja Cat, but it really does not. So if you're not doing that and you're not fighting in that arena, I'll go and say that this is obviously the reanimated, shambling corpse of the MTV that we all knew and grew up with. But let's be honest, eventually you become the thing that you always hated. But for that solid, I don't know, 15, 20 years, yeah, MTV was a beautiful thing.
I like the idea of MTV, needing to have Rick Grimes put a bullet in its head. I'll take that. I'll take that image any day. Carl. Carl used to play music videos. Why doesn't Carl play music videos anymore? I don't know.
I don't know about fuck them kids, but I will say fuck that kid. I couldn't stand that character. Being the one person on this panel who has a steady proximity to this is gonna sound way off. Teenagers, thanks to my wife and her profession, and that she sees. Right?
We're just waiting for that soundbite to be taken out of context.
No way to land that.
So I hang around with a lot of teenagers. Okay.
Yeah. So investigation starts now. But anyway,
Have a seat.
A revolving group of teenagers year in, year after, year in, year out, concerning, she's an educator. Classes move on. I can tell you factually that's not the case. They still are very involved in MTV. It's just not what I think the most poignant point you make, Greg, is that really in a lot of ways, MTV kind of mirrors not only a human being, but mirrors us. When you think about the time and the decades that we existed and came up, its attitude really solidified and mirrored our own, to the point where, like you said, you grow to be what you hated. None of us wanted to be our parents growing up, not one of us. But sooner or later, you start saying the things that your parents used to say. You start getting pissed off about the things your parents used to get pissed off, and before you know it, you start acting almost in a very similar way. It's your version, but it's basically the same thing. And MTV, I think you're nailing it, but in a way you're probably not meaning to. They are doing exactly the same thing. They have become what they weren't trying to be in their inception. Because you're right, they are a culture. They're not counterculture. They are a culture. But you know what else culture is? Commerce in a capitalistic society. They're here to make money just the same as we're working jobs we probably don't want to, because we got to make money.
Because we got to go. Well, Rashad,
I mean, for the record, I just, for the hell of it, I wanted to see how accurate that was. They only had, their YouTube only has 10 million subscribers.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, for us, that would be amazing. But
about to say, we'll take a few of
what's
those.
supposed to be the cultural touchstone, 10 million subscribers ain't shit.
I'll take 100th of that.
Anyone out there, 100,000, like you say, want to come on over and start listening to TSG, you are more than welcome.
No, they died within sync, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, it's
or maybe fortunately.
Rashawn, as I jump into my spot in the batting order here, I'm gonna say I love your image of, it's mirroring us. It's a lot of who we are, and I think I'm thinking about it in terms of my own life here. That MTV started off as like the unattainable, or like that thing I wanted so much, because I started off, I remember listening to songs on the radio, right? And radio stations and disc jockeys. And even these are things that are now part of a bygone era that we've seen, well, maybe not rise, but we've seen fall in our lifetime. The thing that I always point to Blockbuster as something we've seen rise and fall all in the same lifetime, right? So that's a hell of an experience to see that. But radio stations, disc jockeys, that idea was pretty much, felt very permanent, right? It had predated us and had this idea. And so, technology had come along and we had this ability to sort of make these little shorts, right? And that's, looking at it from the present lens, I look back on MTV and it was TikTok before it was TikTok, right? It's short form. It's this idea of, we already have one form of media that we knew the songs from the radio, but now you start making these short films. And even though Greg really, accurately pointed out, of course, that, in the beginning it was all white artists and, but Michael Jackson puts them on the scene, okay? Because one video I wanted to see for the longest time was Beat It. I absolutely was killing myself to try and see that video. I totally remember it. Everything, every kid wanted to see it. You were not cool if you had not seen the Beat It video. And for a long time, not that I grew up deprived by any stretch of anyone's imagination, but we didn't have cable. We just had the air. And this was the newest thing that you wanted to get. You wanted to get your MTV so you could see these short films, because it was just part of who you wanted to be. It was part of, as you say, the culture that could expose you to the counterculture. And that was sort of the dangerous part, that idea of what was going on here. Growing up in this particular market, we had a couple of things. We had videos. They would show like an hour of videos during the cartoons after school, which I thought was really fascinating, right? So the local people would just show like a couple, but you never knew what you were going to get. You'd only get like 5 videos maybe 6 in that hour, because of course, as Rashawn also and Greg, you both pointed out, it's commerce, right? You are still absolutely there. They're absolutely there to sell the bleach. They got to get things going. They got to get things happening during that time. So, wasn't enough, right? You might get it. And they also couldn't always get the most recent videos either. Yeah. A lot of them were still like the discount rack videos at the back. Who knows what they had to pay for the rights? This was WLVI, which in Roman numerals spells 56 and was channel 56 around here. See what they did there? It was fantastic. Somebody locally got that bright idea to make a local video channel, which we call V66, which I know both you boys go in, but I don't know if there was any comparable across the country, but that was just a special time in history. Like suddenly, but it was totally the bargain basement version of MTV. It was your mom buying the Malto meal in the bag. It says, like, come on, it says Irish Charms on it. You like Irish Charms? Like, Mom, that is not Lucky Charms. Come on, it's not what I asked for. What I truly loved was it was still that you could see that short form and trying to tell these short stories, which, by the way, I really think we could do an episode on entirely of itself. It's very interesting to me, the effect that short form has upon our society, right? And how fascinated we are to try and tell a story in the shortest period of time and the most concise period of time. And we were doing it here around music, which is an interesting thing, right? Not all songs necessarily have the story we think they have. And then sometimes they didn't even go the way the songwriter did. A really great example of that is no less than Phil Collins off his my begrudgingly, I hate myself sometimes that I still like this album, No Jacket Required, which was just this seminal.
We don't kink shame. It's fine.
Yeah, seminal piece of the 80s. Like, I still am a little ashamed. I'm shaming myself here. The video, the short story in that is everybody pitching all the different ideas for the short story to go with his video. That's it. They've got a samurai thing. They've got the road warrior. They do all these things. And he's kind of laughing at it at the meantime. And then he went home and divorced his wife by fax. But, it's just, hey, he had things to do, right?
Can't blame the man for being efficient.
Yeah, exactly. But that was sort of it. It was like this ideal, of like, God, I could just get 24 hours of straight videos. And this is just going to be amazing. And for, and like anything in our society and all that, it was so amazing in that beginning. You saw all these new ideas coming. The original Dire Straits video, kids, I cannot tell you what that was like to see the first hit of animation done in a music video form, right? This is way before Toy Story. We were blown the hell away. We kind of totally glossed over the blatantly homophobic lyrics that are just permeating the middle part of that song. We'll continue on. You can go listen to it if you want. I won't highlight it any more than that. But the animation on that, mind blown, right? And here it is again. It gets entered now. We take it as a granted, and we know we can do so much more with that. But that's its first introduction to pop culture, right? Is this short form? So much really is blended in culture, in counterculture, often in those shorter venues, because as well, they take a little bit less money to produce in some cases. Sometimes very innovative things come out. Sometimes very bad things that are laughable comes out. But you get that little window. But and they had the VJs as opposed to the DJs, right? And you had your crushes on some of them, and you watched them, and you develop those first parasocial relationships that we have with so many things now. With we hope you have with your favorite podcasters, but
hey, now
I didn't laugh.
I mean, fingers crossed, people. Come on, everybody's got a dream, but. There was that little view into that world, and you felt like they were broadcasting those videos for you, and you felt like you just maybe you'd meet Daisy Fuentes one day. I mean, just hoping and brush up on your Spanish. But as you said, Greg, they started making this pivot. And even for me as a film guy, the introduction of reality TV at first was fascinating to me. Right. Because I was a film guy at heart. I still liked, I liked that they were doing these short form films and telling these little stories. And I liked going to the movies. So the idea of following people around and seeing what their real lives were like was fascinating. Now, it had been done in the 70s with certain cinema verite, experimental films, and other things like that. It wasn't a new idea, but it was the first time it had been brought to television. It had been serialized. And there was a novelty to it for sure. And it was fascinating. But sure enough, it did end up shaping culture, right? You cannot talk about MTV without talking about the rise of, well, now we will call it so-called reality television, because they, like everyone else, figured out that there's a little problem with reality, that a lot of reality is just goddamn boring. It's getting your bills paid, it's brushing your teeth, and maybe, flossing, right? The stuff that, nobody wants, nobody cares, because that's their own life. They don't want to see their own life. They want to see something that looks like their own life, but enhanced. So I feel like that first season of The Real World maybe was closer to something where they didn't feel they had to push as much, but even by season 2 and definitely by season 3, you could see the producer's fingerprints all over that. And now that's standard operating procedure. I'm real sorry if I'm crushing any of our younger listeners' view of reality television, but they write scripts for that shit. The producers talk, it's terrible. They say, oh, this person just, what she just said about you, go fucking smack her. Whatever it is, right? It's terrible, but it's funny. I sometimes miss the short form of it. It was funny to see what they would come up with for the music aspect of it and how to pair the two up. I'm going to end on just one of the funnier notes that, like one of my favorite videos of all time, and just was such a clear and concise story, was for The Summer of '69 by Bryan Adams. Okay. I mean, it just goes with, it just shows him in the garage strumming on that guitar, got my first real 6-string, right? He just, it's innocence personified in my life in 1986, right? It's just there. And they even show him working at the drive-in and where he meets the girl and all that stuff. And then it takes the darkest fucking turn of all time. If anyone who's ever watched that video to the end, a couple drives by Bryan Adams, playing the song Summer of '69, and suddenly we're in the middle of a domestic violence situation. Like, what the fuck just happened here? Right? He's like, who was that? He slams the car. I'm like, what in the fuck just happened here? We were just in Canada and Bryan Adams was singing and everybody was happy. And now I got to call fucking 911. I still don't know what happened. That's still just one of those strangely dark turns. So I just had to get that out there.
Speaking of pivots.
All of that happened. I was just like, I was thinking about that last night. I'm like, I got to get in Summer of '69 by Bryan Adams, and just how fucking dark that went at the end. So, all right, got that off my chest there.
I don't think you're wrong. I mean, I think if you go to, damn near anyone of any generation and say, what's the easiest way to keep young people entertained? Keep it short, keep it loud. That's going to be the trend.
Coming back again.
Well, I said, if you're going to look for, a thread between most forms of entertainment for young people, the thing that people are always going to fall back on is, keep it short, keep it loud, keep it colorful. Even starting with the Bugs Bunny, they were short, they were loud, it just really, right. The original Disney shorts, they were short, they were loud. It's exactly, even Mickey Mouse, Woody Woodpecker, there was no reason to break that up into segments. Oh, wait, they were short, they were loud, and they made room for commercials. So in a way, yeah, you summed up MTV: short, loud, colorful, made room for commercials.
Well, I think several things, and this is why I love our podcast and why I'm becoming our number one listener, is because I love what you guys cover and the different angles we take at it. So if we start with the understanding of I would guess the sub theme of this conversation. Oh, you started my clock?
I didn't. I was asking you if you wanted me to start your clock.
All right.
I was questioning.
I'm gonna go long anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
At least in
Right. At least
Start
in
his
this
clock.
moment, there's a little bit more back and forth.
All right,
before
your clock. You're on the clock, Rashad.
I'm saying,
Yeah,
like, I'm gonna hold
start
on.
the
I'm
clock.
gonna make some
Yeah, start
points,
the
and I
clock.
would like
Yes.
some back and forth, like we normally have after someone has a point, and then you can start my clock, sir. Recognize my time here.
Right. I'm taking my time back. I'm taking my time back.
Taking my time back, man. I was just gonna point out. It seems like the sub theme of this episode is "fuck them kids." Kids need to learn early and often. If you see a shot, if you're watching quote unquote reality TV and you see a shot where there's a camera facing you in a surprise moment, it's not reality. Like that's no longer a shock. How you have to at least ask yourself, how do they have a camera looking at the person that's supposed to be surprised? Shouldn't they know the camera's there? Is that really a surprise? And I agree with Josh that the first season of Real World was probably as close we're going to get without being creepy like Big Brother. I would also argue and push back that most human beings, I would say, probably don't really have boring lives. But look at it this way. If your life is the equivalent of a movie, the really fun parts that we try to think about would be the trailer. So even no matter how exciting your life is, you're kind of always looking at it from a trailer point of view, which then if you take the microcosm of that and put it into music form, that's really what the video is, right? It's like it's the montage of your life, or at least the montage of the events of that subject.
It's
So
a
that's-
life montage.
That's all I was gonna say. Now, see the rebuttal, see the back and forth. No,
I
Don't
loved
make me
it. I mean,
that.
you know, here it's just
I
you
can
know,
be an asshole on my own. I don't need any help. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, we just, like,
it's still fun to tweak with it now and again. It's still,
Fair
you
enough.
know, it's still, you know, it's hey, it's good podcasting, right? You know, if we just did the reality of it, come on, if we didn't
Yeah.
tweak each other's nipples, come on.
You guys are
Right.
basically Big Worm in an ice cream truck, and be like, look how fast I can make this fucking run, and just keep
all right.
pulling up and stopping on me, running away, taking my money. Don't
Absolutely.
even give me my chili hot Cheetos. It's fucked up.
Chili-
Chili hot.
Did you get my cheese whiz, boy? All right, there we go. Coming on out there. We got that going on. And we then officially taking his time back. We got the 3 of clubs doing his 3 of club thing. I want to hear what he was coming up with in the hallway when we were out there. Greg and I were out there talking. So we gave him a little extra time in the hallway, put that homework together. Let's see what we got in those 10 minutes.
To be fair, some of this was thought up on the bus on the way to
Okay,
school.
all right. Okay.
In the
I
hallway.
I'm not good at writing when I'm on the bus. I'm not a very good writer. This is gonna be a fun conversation. There's so many directions to go in. I would point out that I agree with Greg in the sense that the MTV in which we grew up with did in fact sort of suffer, let's call it a stroke, and needed a personality change of the highest degree, to the point where you can argue that they just completely got amnesia. But there's some reasons for that. But if you want to point to 2 shows, I think put the final nail in the coffin, I would say that one would be The Real World. But that moved a lot of TV in a lot, I would argue, a bad direction. Again, it's no longer reality, people, if you have producers and writers. Think about it. And then also TRL, because when TRL started, I immediately in the back of my head knew this was the end. They had no. Here's the problem with TRL. Before I even move to the other parts, because I just have a second to point on this for the kids, because you need to understand this, and for people our generation, it would probably be like, "Come on, man, that was awesome." Think about it. TRL at one point was the most popular show on MTV, and they only showed you 30 to 45 seconds of a music video. So the property that got them to that moment, the property that they built their foundation on, their castle on their freaking hill, all of this, they were getting more power, more money, more views on showing half of what got them there. That's insane. That's an incredible profit margin when you think about the people who are making money from it. Think about going to your local pizzeria. If they can get the same amount of money from you from a half a slice of pizza or a half a pie and charge you the same amount, and not only that, raise the price and you come back twice as much, why would they change? They're making money hand over fist. They knew from that moment they absolutely do not need to play music videos to make money and move forward. Because as Greg pointed out, poignantly, they were no longer counterculture. Matter of fact, since the early 90s, they had swiftly moved into the culture. I don't know if it was a deal with the devil. I don't know if it was a deal with the politicians. I don't know, whatever. But they went from, in some ways, at least from the late 80s into somewhat of the early 90s, being a sort of one universal, because Greg points out there's obviously other, and so did Josh. And there, for the kids who didn't have cable, there were some weird options that we got that if you're close enough to Canada, a Friday night, it was desperate times, people. You don't understand what it was like without the internet. You don't. So you really don't.
Just rebel listening.
But like aside from that, if you were going to hear something kind of crazy out there, Nirvana, before it became Nirvana, you probably heard on MTV. They were in a lot of ways the counterculture. The news that they pushed out, which I couldn't stand as a kid because I didn't want to watch news. I'm here for the music videos. But even that was counterculture and how they presented it, the subjects they went after, and how they challenged things. Greg brought up a good point that even lasted later on into their legacy. MTV was, in fact, that sort of counterculture for at least almost, let's argue, almost a decade. I give it about 7 years. But Greg points out the shift, and he's dead on. In the early 90s, and about the same time I'm talking about, but on the latter end, they understood culture was the place to be. They no longer were being the sort of easy targets for, let's say, unscrupulous politicians who didn't want to pass a bill or do any work, but wanted to gen up their base. They went from being that easy target to no longer really talked about, even when they have young teenagers running around scantily clad, doing basically all sorts of sinful things, but still somehow missing the target of at least most people, except for evangelicals, which up until, I have to tell you, people, the last decade, everything was the target of evangelicals. If you caught them in the right time, it didn't really matter. It was just wherever they wanted to line up for whatever passage they
700 Club was a minefield.
I mean, for real.
For the most part, it was usually what said evangelicals were actually doing at that time. But yes, agreed. You know?
Now, the funny part with their maturation into the counterculture, because the one thing that MTV did to try to foster this was they understood, at least in some part of the late 80s, going into early 90s, yeah, we need segmented approach. That's why I brought up, like, before Nirvana was Nirvana, they were actually on TV, not in a big way, but people need to understand that before it really blew up, they were in segments like these little weird shows that MTV would put out there. For some of us, we didn't have the option of getting BET, so you had to go to Yo MTV Raps. For some of us, we didn't have the option of getting Heavy Metal or other things, so you had to go to Headbangers Ball. Quick side story: when I was in my early 20s, I was counter famed for a lot of reasons, and I thought my only way of going about it was doing what I felt famous people did to other people. So I was in California, and I swore to myself, if I meet a celebrity, I'm going to shun him. I'm going to get him in conversation. I'm going to act like, oh, whatever, you're not worth my time. I'm going to do what I felt like celebrities did. And the person I ended up meeting was fucking Matt Pinfield. Let me tell you people right now, Matt Pinfield is like one of the nicest guys in the industry. If you ever get a chance to talk to this dude, you're in a good spot. The dude is just genuinely and cool and nice and all that, and it broke my heart. I did it because, you know, I got scruples. I made a pact to myself, so I did what I said I was going to do, but it broke my heart. And Matt Pinfield, if you're ever listening to this, I'm sorry, and I would love to buy you a beer one time, and you can stand me up. So back to the sort of march into MTV.
Deal. Steam people, get on that. We need Matt Penfield to stand up the 3 clubs for a bit.
Fly me out to California and then stand me up. That's fine. But moving into this weird counterculture of what MTV was, and they earned it. To be fair, like I said, they had a news approach that was super counterculture. They were willing to at least put in, for the most part, white side artists and stuff that you probably wouldn't hear or see or do much without MTV. They were in a lot of ways part of the early 80s London punk invasion. You wouldn't have known a lot of these guys if it wasn't for MTV. However, the funny part with London and MTV is how we actually got the color barrier broke, because it took David Bowie shaming the shit out of them to their face in an interview about how one of the biggest artists in the globe didn't get nearly an airtime on their global approach to music. They're supposed to be the music providers and showers, the gatekeepers of what was music and what music videos should have been. And David Bowie's like, and how exactly do you not have Michael Jackson playing every freaking minute, every hour? He's talking about, he's on there being interviewed about his own music. He's like, I wouldn't even put my music videos in front of that guy. What are you doing? So it took things like that for the color barrier to basically break. Because before 1983, weirdly enough, it was very, 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 very white. When I mean very white, I mean literally 99.9% of the videos shown were white. So then you get to weird spots where a couple years later, you have a 5-year-old who didn't know any different, and he's running around yelling filler because, yes, I had a problem with my THs and my Fs, so I switched them. So I used to call it filler, but that was my shit because, as Josh pointed out, music videos from an early point to me were like mini movies. They told complete stories in 3.5 to 4 minutes. You could take a quick music video like Sabotage and you get a full-on movie from the Beastie Boys, or you can take the music video that drove me fucking insane. Sorry, I know people want me to use up on my F-bombs, but drove me insane in the summer of the 90s. Josh, I know I'm gonna hurt you on this, but Silent Lucidity from Queensryche. Oh my God, I was willing to bomb MTV. I know that's not a great thing to say.
Wait,
you're talking to a 10-year-old. Silent Lucidity from Queensryche.
Queensryche.
A 10-year-old was ready to find MTV and blow up whatever station he needed to end the reign of that video. Because the other thing that we're not talking about, we don't have time to, is the rotation that MTV used to fall into. And oh my God, if you did not like those 7 songs that they were playing, you were fucked. There's no other way around it. But MTV had to move on. And as I pointed out, even past the countercultures, even past the little segments that they would do, even past the shows that, Greg brought up, and there's so many cool shows that come up and produce so many of the celebrities that a lot of people today celebrate. Even with all that, because of shows like TRL and Real World, they moved into a different spot. They moved into a situation where they needed to make money. And the thing that we're not necessarily talking about, but we have to bring up to be fair to MTV, videos really were becoming movies. They were points in which the whole culture shared on society. We can talk about songs left and right where we all knew were coming out before it even came out because it was that type of property. And they continue to grow in complexity. That complexity means money. So what happened really in a lot of ways for MTV to move into where it moved into, and they do make money and they are pretty prominent with the teenagers, it wasn't because of music videos they didn't want to stop showing. No one was making them because there wasn't any real money in it. Artists were losing money to make these videos. MTV just basically kind of ran out of content, so they kind of had to do. So I know I'm out of time, but to quote one of my favorite freaking scenes and lines in all of MTV program, I'm Doug and I'm out of here.
Bringing it back.
Shout out to the state.
No less.
Go through that roster.
That's why we're friends. And I also just want to say, Rashawn, I'm smiling next to you.
You bastard.
Lucidity.
You bastard. I know where you live. Don't do it to me, man.
Oh man, I saw Queensryche, probably about 5-6 times growing up, and I saw it particularly on the Empire tour, which was special because they did the entirety of the Operation Mindcrime album, which is still an incredible concept album that I think I might force you two gentlemen just to listen to the entire thing one time just to get your thoughts on, because I think it presages where we're at right now. In sort of society and politics and a lot of things. So I just love that you brought that up. Also, I lived for Headbangers Ball at times. Definitely just loved it. Headbangers Ball. I mean, it was because of the truth was in my identity and my my ability to rebel was relatively limited. And, who am I kidding? Like if I really went to hip hop, no one was going to buy that shit, but I could go to heavy metal and it would piss my father off. So, like that was always where he was like afraid I was going to go. So sure enough, I ended up with ripped jeans and long hair. Like that was.
I was about to say, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you rock the ponytail for a little bit?
I did rock the ponytail. I did.
Yeah, that's how you would have sold it. If you were looking just like you're looking now, you probably could have pulled off hip hop. If you really loved it, you were in it. But the ponytail, no.
The ponytail was the metal face. Fast. It was definitely the metal
up
face.
In here.
And it was definitely but to and certainly Headbangers Ball, you're talking 99.999% white, but to its credit, it was the first time I saw Living Color. So
they did play.
I didn't mean Headbangers Ball. To be fair, I didn't mean Headbangers Ball was. I mean, it by default.
Well, no, the whole station was 99%.
That's really what I meant. But that was before they started segmenting. It was directly after, because the funny part is I didn't even touch on this because I found a through line while you guys were talking. So thank you. But I do have to point out, in a lot of ways, part of my personality was formed from early MTV in weird ways that no one saw coming. Like, for example, my first crush in the whole world was Whitney Houston, and I Want to Dance with Somebody. However, my first quirky crush was Martha Quinn. My understanding of race relations, because weirdly enough, coming from California, it's not like I wasn't around white people, but you have to remember my family, the way they were kind of operating, and it was no different. A lot of African-American families coming out of the 70s, almost everyone that I interacted with was black. And the only exceptions were the few people at my mom's job where some were white, but most were Mexican. So like, if you weren't black or Mexican, I kind of was like, oh, I guess we don't hang out. And then one of the first videos I saw when I moved to Massachusetts was Walk This Way with DMC and Aerosmith. And the way my head worked, I was always thinking in my head, like, oh, okay, so if I'm seeing this means adults are cool with it now. So yeah, all right, cool. We're I guess racism solved. We're cool here. And then the reason why also the way I am is because MTV gave me a false sense of adulthood going into the 90s and into the mid 90s. And the more it became exactly what Greg was talking about, the less I wanted to be about it. So I was steadily heading in the way of like wanting to be a giant consumer and care about things like, maybe not the tan part, but gym and like that gym laundry, like clubbing lifestyle, and like that whole, like, I want to be at the scene and I want to be seen and all this other shit. Like, I used to love MTV Summer, and like I wanted to be there when I was growing up. And then as it became worse, I wanted to be nothing like it. It was almost like it became my kryptonite.
And when I was saying that, because I mean you acknowledge that obviously MTV is a huge business and they're going to go wherever the money flows. But that's the way I was trying to make the tie between. I didn't really make it, but I tried to make the tie between, like those early producers of music, pretty much any of them, like Sun Records, Def Jam, even Motown to a certain degree. You have to kind of turn that corner, and it becomes which one's forward, the money or the music. And that happened with every other generation. So it's like, all right, fine, you're going to bow your head and you're just going to kind of say, all right, 90s kid, it's your turn. Time for everything to become a plastic and deformed, twisted monetary whore that you never envisioned, and now you feel a little bit dirty because you feel like you're responsible for getting it to this point. So let's be honest, by enjoying yourself and enjoying your youth, you're destroying the world. Get used to it. It's a common feeling. It doesn't get better as you get older.
Nope.
But you also appreciate that, for MTV, like I said, that little 15-year period of time, that little hardcore 15-year period of time, it was its own thing. It was counterculture. It was unapologetic. like, except for the black people that it snubbed. But apart from that,
Yeah.
it was
Details.
it was
It's a long
unapologetic,
list.
and it
I mean, let's
yeah,
be honest
and
here.
it was honestly a beautiful thing. But yeah, when the beautiful people started cropping up, and all of a sudden you're like, yo, this ain't Tabitha Soren. Who the fuck is this chick? Yeah, the feeling was gone. The feeling was gone.
Yeah.
It wasn't the same.
It is that it was all of our teenage crushes. And, I think it's just the station of itself and the crushes that we had on the people and everything else. It was this kind of high school relationship, and it's like so special to you at the time, but there's no going back. I mean, it's just
no going.
I mean,
back.
the funny part is artists are still making music videos. They're
Of
readily
course.
available.
They never stopped making music videos.
Oh yeah.
But well, no, actually, there was a period of time that you can track. Artists were slowing down on it because they just. Well, let me say it like this: it wasn't so much artists, right? They want to get their music out there. It's the people paying for it. So it got to a point where they literally became mini movies. Like, they would show us 4 minutes, but it'd be 10 minutes long. It'd be millions of dollars into it. They weren't getting a return of investment. So production companies, music companies were slowing down on making videos, which meant MTV had two choices: keep playing our archives, or we figure out a way to shorten it and then eventually get rid of it. And that's exactly what they did. But it's not like music videos aren't out there. Thank God for Vivo.
Well, it was that.
Well,
And,
weirdly
I mean,
enough,
the
I don't know Vivo.
let's take it easy there.
Yeah,
the
easy.
beauty of that
I'll know that.
period was, like, really everybody just started trying to, like, one up each other.
Yeah.
Janet Jackson was trying to make the bigger video than Michael. Michael was trying to make a bigger video.
Michael got Eddie Murphy in his damn video, man. Like, remember?
Yeah,
do you remember
probably
that had almost that. You could almost call that the prequel to Coming to America.
Almost, yeah, you could, and everyone was trying to one up each. Actually, there was a funny story about I'm trying to remember. It was Smashing Pumpkins. They made the video. They were going to make a video, and it was going to have like a bunch of like people swimming in a pool. And literally, I don't know, a month before, the Red Hot Chili Peppers did the exact same video, and that's why
Aeroplane, I think.
I think so, yeah. And that's why Smashing Pumpkins ended up making that video for Tonight, which was like that huge. It was everywhere when it came out. But there was that kind of competition between people making music videos, even with these guys who were supposed to be alternative. But there was a competition between them too. So that was also part of the beauty of it, like you were just going to get better and better and cooler, more iconic videos, and I don't know if that's the case now. I just see a lot of ass, which
I mean,
is just a great deal of ass in videos today. So I'm kind of
I think it depends on what video you're watching.
All I think about is, yo, man, 2 Live Crew would have had it so easy now.
I know.
My God. they wouldn't even get press up. Quick fun question for you guys: Do you know why they call themselves the Smashing Pumpkins?
I don't know that one.
I used to know, but I do not know now.
A lot of people think that it's some sort of verb. It's an adjective. They actually are hearkening back to the old timey English sort of vernacular and smashing, as in Josh and Greg, you two gentlemen look smashing today.
Love it. Oh, well,
smashing.
I just want to take this opportunity to once again congratulate the panel. I think we've mission accomplished. We broke down the rise and the fall of MTV. We again solved racism, as we do every week.
To be fair, that was Run DMC and Aerosmith.
Yeah. Now we're just continuing to pick that torch up and just say,
real quick. In the beginning of this podcast, when you guys were talking, all I could hear is REM Shiny Happy People, because I swear to God, you guys were literally giving us the other version of how they got to that song and what Michael Stipe was feeling. I feel like Michael Stipe was channeling through the two of you at the beginning of this podcast.
Still now, back in 2020, I will never forget that song because I was in Trader Joe's buying groceries, scared shitless, no mask on at that point, all that, and that was playing over. So there you go. The apocalypse. Yeah. Callback. Getting that
Callback.
episode, but callback.
Apocalyptic callback.
Yeah, that's it. Always got to go to the apocalyptic callback. Everyone's favorite callback. But as we are back, I'm back here from vacation being a lazy bum, but we have the whole week ahead of us. But I still want to lead us out, say, turn to the three clubs and say, what you got going on this week going into the weekend? And I hope you were, everybody had as happy a Mother's Day. I know we all have. Actually, I think all of our mothers are gone, but that being the case,
my mother will be shocked to hear that.
Okay. I said I think. I said I think because it's a little confusing sometimes.
She owed me $100.
$100.
Might not get it back, man.
Oh, please.
Fuck.
Please. Shit. But what do we got on for the rest of this week coming out of that Mother's Day weekend?
Wow. Now I'm really on the spot. I will have to say, as we get older and the passing of all the icons, some of whom we saw and got to know because of MTV, just appreciate everyday individuals because no day and tomorrow is not guaranteed.
Well, hell, man, you had to go all deep on me there. You on fire today again.
Giggity.
I mean, I stuttered at first. I know what I was gonna say. I even messed up that phrase. So don't give me too much credit. Thank you.
We're gonna heap some praise on you, but Star Child, it's a long week ahead, stretching out into that weekend. But what are you gonna do to get yourself? What are you gonna do to get yourself through to that weekend?
Well, after I'm done grieving the loss of my poor mother, probably.
I want to put on this title this where I kill Greg's mom.
I'm gonna need a moment. But after that, we'll probably, do some gardening.
Well, tell your mother I'm sorry about that. Just next time. I'm sorry, Josh.
I'll make sure if she ever listens to this, I'll make sure she knows that we clarified.
Oh, I was doing so well, and then just that fucking parachute under that fucking bridge.
You're looking good, man. You're gliding along.
I was gliding along. I got this motherfucker now. Woo! Bam!
Yeah.
That's that. Oh shit!
I mean, don't tell me I came off as too happy because I just don't believe that.
Don't believe. Well,
so aside from practicing writing eulogies, Josh, what are you gonna be up to?
Aside
what are you
from
doing,
murders,
Josh?
Apparently.
Where are your other hobbies for this week?
Yeah, exactly. Killing moms. Me and Ed Kemper. I'm gonna continue to work through this week, get myself back in the swing of things. As there's always there's the fun time of vacation and then the reckoning afterwards, right? When you return to the rest of your life, that's what that's going to be. So I'm going to attempt to, get my kids back on. Exactly. Gotta love it. Oh, as the sweet pipes of our very own Star Child singing to us there. Yes, I got to just get back into it best I can, and try and keep my kids, try and smart my kids back up after taking them out of school after school vacation, so I can add to the decline of Western civilization and intelligence. We know that.
As we do.
I'm going to lead us out. I'm going to say that we do hope you will go over to Apple Podcasts or iTunes or even Spotify, rate and review us, help push that old algorithm. Check us out on the socials. We're the Steam Gentleman Podcast on Facebook. We are Do You Even Steam Bro on Instagram. We are the Steam G's on the Twitter. So
still this man's Twitter.
Well, so yeah, exactly. Until Elon Musk gets done with us, and all right. So there's that. There is that little awkward moment there. I do want to send us off though, telling you that one thing on the MTV. Last thought on the MTV was that I will forever be grateful for Beavis and Butthead. That shit
yeah.
will never get old. I am still a 12-year-old who just
This is where we differ, because it took for the movie for me to like them, and
That
then
movie
I could
was-
only like certain seasons of it. The first
That movie was
season and a half,
sheer
we'd throw away.
fucking genius. That movie was amazing.
The
from
soundtrack was badass.
Soundtrack was badass. Everything, including when Beavis looks at Butthead and says, I don't know, that's a lot of money. Maybe we could just pretend he's a girl. I mean, alone, worth it. Absolutely worth it. Still on it. But in the meantime, till next week, till we next convene our little panel of geek here. This is Josh the Birdman telling you to keep your heat up and keep your head of steam on.